You're all welcome to today's news analysis. This is where we break things down in a simple, clear, and honest way that matters to you. If you care about justice, Nigeria, and the future of our democracy, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what is happening right now is not ordinary, and every new development is shaping a bigger national conversation. Now, let's go straight to the heart of the matter. Chris Smith, a United States lawmaker, has stepped forward with a strong message. He is not just observing from a distance. He is actively calling for international attention and careful oversight of the appeal process involving Nnamdi Kanu. That alone tells you how serious this case has become. Because when a foreign lawmaker speaks this directly about a legal case in Nigeria, it means the situation has crossed beyond internal concern. It is no longer seen as a matter that affects only one country. It is now attracting global focus and raising deeper questions about how justice is being handled. But he did not stop there. Chris Smith also called on Bola Tinubu to ensure that the rule of law is fully respected. He stressed that the rights of Nnamdi Kanu must be upheld and that the legal process must remain fair, open, and credible at every stage. This is a very direct statement, and it places attention not just on the courts, but also on leadership at the highest level. It means responsibility is now being looked at from both legal and political angles, and every action taken will be closely watched. Now, to understand why this matters, we need to look at what led to this point. On November 20, 2025, Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja delivered a major judgment. Nnamdi Kanu was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to life imprisonment, along with other varying prison terms. That judgment immediately changed everything. From that moment, the case moved into a new phase. It was no longer about accusations or arguments. It became a matter of conviction and punishment under the law, and the focus shifted to what would happen next. Following the sentencing, Nnamdi Kanu was transferred to a correctional center in Sokoto State, where he is currently serving his sentence. That move also raised fresh discussions across the country, as many Nigerians continued to follow every step of the case closely. Public interest did not slow down. Instead, it grew stronger, with different opinions forming across different groups. But the legal process did not end there. On February 4, 2025, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu personally filed an appeal against his conviction and sentence at the Court of Appeal. That action reopened the case in a new way. Because an appeal is not just a continuation. It is a direct challenge to the earlier judgment. It is a legal effort to review decisions, question findings, and examine whether the law was properly applied from start to finish. And now, this is where everything stands. A life sentence has already been given. An appeal has now been filed. And a powerful international voice is calling for close monitoring of the entire process. This combination is what makes the situation very important, because it brings together law, leadership, and global attention all at once. It creates a moment where every step taken carries weight, and every decision will be examined from different angles. It also raises a key question. What happens next will not only affect one individual. It will reflect on how justice is seen and understood in Nigeria, both within the country and outside it. This is why the call for supervision is significant. It is not just about watching proceedings. It is about ensuring that every step taken is in line with legal standards, fairness, and accountability, without any doubt or confusion. And at this point, all eyes are now on the appeal process. What decisions will be made? How those decisions will be reached? And whether the process will meet both national expectations and international standards. This is the situation as it stands today. Clear, serious, and still unfolding. This is where the situation becomes more intense and more sensitive. The appeal process is now at the center of attention, and it is no longer being viewed as an ordinary legal step. With the involvement of Chris Smith, the expectations have changed, and the pressure has increased. His call for monitoring is not a routine statement. It is a signal that concerns exist about how the process may unfold. When a foreign lawmaker openly asks for supervision, it reflects a belief that the outcome must be clearly seen as fair, not just declared as fair. This puts the spotlight directly on the Nigerian judicial system. It also sends a message that whatever happens in the appeal of Nnamdi Kanu will be closely followed, not only by Nigerians but by observers outside the country. At this stage, the issue is no longer limited to legal arguments alone. It now involves perception, credibility, and trust. Because in cases like this, the process matters just as much as the outcome. If the process is seen as transparent, it strengthens confidence in the system. If it is seen as unclear or influenced, it raises doubts that can spread far beyond the courtroom. This is why the focus on monitoring is important. It is about ensuring that the appeal is handled in a way that leaves no room for suspicion. Every step must follow due process, and every decision must be backed by clear legal reasoning. At the same time, attention is also on the role of leadership. The call made to Bola Tinubu is not just symbolic. It carries weight because it highlights the connection between governance and the rule of law. Even though the judiciary operates independently, the broader environment in which it functions is shaped by leadership, policy direction, and public trust. This means that the actions and responses of the government will also be watched closely. There is now a wider expectation that institutions will act with discipline and respect for legal standards. And this is where the situation becomes more delicate. Because the appeal is not happening in isolation. It is taking place in a country where opinions are already divided, and where public interest in this case remains very strong. Some see the original conviction as necessary. Others believe there are questions that must be properly addressed through the appeal. This difference in views makes the process even more important. Because the only way to manage such a situation is through a process that is clearly fair and balanced. Anything short of that may deepen tensions instead of resolving them. This is also why international attention can have a strong impact. It does not change the law, but it increases the level of accountability. It means that the appeal will not only be judged by local standards but will also be compared to broader expectations of justice and fairness. That creates a higher level of scrutiny. And with that scrutiny comes pressure. Pressure on the courts to remain firm and independent. Pressure on institutions to avoid any form of interference. Pressure on the entire system to prove that justice is being done properly. At this point, the appeal has become more than a legal procedure. It is now a test. A test of how strong the legal system is. A test of how well institutions can handle sensitive matters. A test of whether justice can be carried out in a way that earns public confidence. And these are not small questions. Because the answers will shape how people see the system going forward. This is why every step taken from now on matters. Every hearing. Every argument. Every ruling. All of it will contribute to the final perception of the process. And perception, in a case like this, carries real consequences. Because once trust is affected, it is not easy to rebuild. That is why the emphasis on fairness, openness, and accountability is so strong at this stage. The appeal must not only be conducted properly. It must also be seen clearly to be conducted properly. That difference is important. Because in situations with high public interest, people are not only looking at results. They are watching the process itself. They are paying attention to how decisions are made, how arguments are handled, and how the law is applied. This level of attention changes the environment. It makes every action more significant. And it increases the importance of getting every detail right. Right now, the situation remains active and closely followed. Nothing has been decided yet at the appeal level. But expectations are already high. And those expectations will continue to grow as the process moves forward. This is where things stand. Serious, sensitive, and under watch. At this stage, the focus shifts to what comes next and what the outcome of this appeal could mean in real terms. Nnamdi Kanu remains in custody in a correctional center in Sokoto State, serving the sentence handed down by the court. But at the same time, the legal battle is still active, and the appeal process is now the key path forward. This creates a situation where two realities exist at once. On one side, a conviction has already been made and is being enforced. On the other side, that same conviction is being challenged through legal means. This balance is what makes the current moment very important. Because the appeal is not a minor step. It is a critical legal process that can confirm, change, or completely overturn what has already been decided. And this is why attention remains high. The involvement of Chris Smith has added another layer to the situation. His call for close monitoring means that the process will not happen quietly or without attention from outside Nigeria. That level of attention increases responsibility on all sides. It means the judiciary must operate with full independence. It means institutions must avoid any action that could be seen as influence or pressure. And it means the entire process must remain grounded in the law. At the same time, the role of leadership is still part of the discussion. The message directed at Bola Tinubu continues to carry weight. It reflects a broader expectation that governance and the rule of law must align, especially in cases that attract national and international focus. This does not change the structure of the legal system, but it does increase the level of accountability expected from those in positions of authority. Now, looking ahead, the possible outcomes of the appeal will shape the next phase of this situation. If the original judgment is upheld, it will reinforce the position already taken by the court and confirm the life sentence. If any part of the judgment is altered, it will raise new legal and public discussions about how the case was handled from the beginning. If the conviction is overturned, it will mark a major shift and open an entirely different path forward. Each of these possibilities carries its own impact, and each of them will be closely examined. Because the significance of this case goes beyond the individual involved. It touches on how justice is applied, how decisions are reviewed, and how confidence in the system is built or affected. This is why the process itself remains just as important as the final decision. Every argument presented, every response given, every legal point raised, all of these elements will contribute to how the outcome is understood. And in a situation like this, understanding matters. Because public reaction is shaped not only by what is decided, but by how that decision is reached. This is where the pressure becomes more visible. The system is expected to function without error. The process is expected to be clear and consistent. And the outcome is expected to reflect the law without bias. These expectations are high, but they are not unusual in cases that carry this level of attention. At the same time, public interest continues to grow. People are following updates. People are forming opinions. People are waiting to see what the appeal will bring. This ongoing attention means that every development will be discussed and analyzed. It also means that the impact of the final decision will extend beyond the courtroom. Because once a conclusion is reached, it will influence how similar cases are viewed in the future. It will also affect how trust in the legal system is measured. This is why the current moment is important. It is not just about what is happening now. It is about what this process represents. A test of legal strength. A test of institutional integrity. A test of how justice is carried out under pressure. And these tests are being observed from different angles. Within Nigeria. And outside Nigeria. At this point, nothing has been concluded. The appeal is still ongoing. The outcome is still unknown. But the direction that is being taken will matter. Because it will define how this situation is remembered. And how similar situations may be handled in the future. For now, the process continues. Carefully, closely, and under constant attention. And that is where things stand. At this point, the appeal process continues to move forward within the legal system, and each stage is being followed with close attention. The proceedings at the Court of Appeal are expected to address key legal questions raised by Nnamdi Kanu in his challenge against the earlier judgment. These questions are not minor. They go to the core of how the case was handled, how the law was applied, and whether the final decision met required legal standards. This is why the review process is detailed and structured. The court is expected to examine records, listen to arguments, and assess whether there were any errors that could affect the validity of the conviction and sentence. Each of these steps carries weight, and none of them can be treated lightly. At the same time, the broader environment around the case remains active. Public attention has not reduced. Legal observers, analysts, and concerned groups continue to follow developments as they happen. This level of attention means that every update from the court is likely to be discussed and interpreted in different ways. It also means that clarity in communication becomes important. Because in situations like this, uncertainty can quickly lead to confusion. That is why the process is expected to remain open and well-structured, with clear explanations for each decision that is made along the way. Meanwhile, the earlier concerns raised by Chris Smith remain part of the wider discussion. His position on monitoring and supervision continues to reflect the level of interest coming from outside Nigeria. It reinforces the idea that the appeal is not only a national matter but one that is being observed at an international level. This does not change the authority of the court, but it increases the level of scrutiny surrounding the process. And with that scrutiny comes a stronger expectation of accountability. Every action taken within the appeal will be viewed through this lens. Every delay, every decision, and every outcome will be assessed based on how well it aligns with legal standards and fairness. At the same time, attention remains on institutional conduct. There is a continued expectation that all parties involved will act within the boundaries of the law and maintain respect for due process. This includes ensuring that proceedings are handled without interference and that decisions are based strictly on legal merit. As the process unfolds, timelines will also become important. The pace of the appeal, the scheduling of hearings, and the delivery of rulings will all play a role in shaping public perception. A process that is seen as efficient and organized can build confidence. A process that appears delayed or unclear may raise further questions. For now, the situation remains active and unresolved. The appeal continues. The legal arguments are still under review, and the final outcome is yet to be determined. What remains clear is that the next steps will carry lasting significance, not only for the individuals involved, but for the broader understanding of how justice is applied and reviewed within the system. That is the present state of the matter. Ongoing, closely watched, and still developing.